The pale winter moon hung low over the sagebrush, its light scattered in silver sparks across a land hushed by frost. Elias Crowder rode with his collar turned up, every breath of his horse rising like steam into the star-hushed dark. He hadn't meant to come home tonight. Trade had called him elsewhere, but something older than reason tugged at his reins, pulling him back across the frozen ground. A man knows the silence of his own land, and this night carried a weight that pressed against his ribs like the warning of a storm. The homestead rose out of the dark like a shadow etched in frost. No firelight flickered in the windows. No smoke curled from the chimney. Elias slowed his horse, heart beating faster than the animal beneath him. When he stepped down, boots crunching against the stiff earth, he saw them. On the porch, bound tight against the wooden posts, sat the figures of his daughters and their mother. Ropes cut against their arms, breath puffing weak clouds into the bitter night. Abigail, 12, clung to her little sister as much as the ropes allowed, her cheeks red with cold. Rosie, only 8, tilted her face upward toward the moon, lips trembling as though whispering prayers to the stars. Clara, once his wife, still proud even in this humiliation, sat rigid, her hair stiff with frost against her cheek, eyes burning through the dark. Elias dropped to his knees before them. He didn't shout, didn't curse. His hands, rough with trail dust and callus, fumbled against the knots until the ropes gave way. His voice was low, steady, whispering each name like a prayer. Abby, Rosie, Clara. The girls sagged into his arms, their small bodies rigid with cold. Shame stabbed him deeper than any blade. He had chosen Ruth, left them in her keeping, and now they bore the punishment of his blindness. Inside the cabin, warmth blazed from a fire. Ruth slept with her back to the door, wrapped in quilts, her face softened by dreams. Elias did not wake her. He carried the children inside first, laying them close to the flames, rubbing warmth back into their small hands. Clara followed slowly, each step betraying her exhaustion, though she held her chin high, refusing to bow to weakness. By the fire, Elias thawed their hands in bowls of warm water. The flicker of the flames painted their faces in trembling gold. Rosie pressed against him, whispering in a small voice, "But you came back, Papa." The words cracked something inside him, made his chest ache with both shame and fragile hope. Clara's voice, quieter still, carried a sharper edge. "You left us, Elias. You gave her the rope." He had no defense, only silence. Yet as his daughters leaned into him, finding warmth at last, the weight of his failure burned clear. This was the truth. He had ridden after trade, after duty, and abandoned his own blood to the cold. The house itself felt divided, one side heavy with warmth and cruelty, the other lit by quiet grace. As the girls drifted into exhausted sleep under quilts, Elias stood at the doorway, watching over them. Behind him, Ruth still slept, untouched by the night's frost. Before him lay the family he thought lost, breathing softly, clinging to him in silence. And in that threshold, Elias felt the reckoning begin. Dawn crept across the homestead, a pale light spilling over the frosted ground and seeping through the windows. Elias Crowder sat at the wooden table, coffee steaming in his hands. He did not speak, did not move more than the slow lifting of the cup to his lips. His eyes were fixed on the grain of the wood, but his silence filled the whole room heavier than thunder. Ruth stirred in the back room, footsteps sharp against the floorboards. She froze when she saw him there, broad shoulders hunched in stillness, his hat on the table beside the mug. Her voice came quick, brittle as glass. "They had it coming, Elias. Clara turns them against me. Someone had to teach them respect." He lifted his gaze at last, and the weight of it struck harder than any fist. His voice was low, steady. "Binding children in the cold ain't respect. It's cruelty." For the first time, Ruth faltered. His calm, cut deeper than anger, left no room for excuses. She snapped back, words sharper than sense, but he did not rise to meet them. He simply sipped his coffee, silence wrapping tighter until her fury curled into shame. By midday, the whispers had already reached the neighbors. Folks leaned at fences, eyes sharp with judgment. Ruth Crowder, cruel to them girls, they said, always was jealous of Clara, thinking Elias never let go. The shame hung like smoke over the house. Clara, sitting on the porch wrapped in a borrowed shawl, felt every glance like a thorn. Pride had carried her through cold and rope, but the pity of others cut worse. That night, after the children slept, Elias tended Clara's frostbitten hands by the fire. He dipped cloth in warm water, pressed it gently to her skin, his touch careful, almost reverent. She watched him, pride and pain colliding in her throat. "You shouldn't touch me like this, Elias. Folks will talk." He met her eyes, quiet as always. "Let 'em talk. I'll do what's right by you and by them." No declarations followed, no fiery confessions. Only silence and the fire's crackle, and the slow thawing of years of bitterness. Abby and Rosie peeked from the doorway, smiles shy but bright, the first glimpse of safety returning to their faces. By morning, Ruth was gone. Her trunk rattled on a neighbor's wagon, her face set in fury and shame. Elias did not follow, did not beg. He stood in the yard, arms crossed, watching her fade into the horizon. He knew he had chosen wrong once, but he would not let that wrong carry forward. Clara, once too proud to accept help, let him carry buckets of water for her, mend what she would have borne alone. She did not thank him aloud. Instead, she let him see the change in her silence, the weight she finally allowed him to share. That evening, as firelight wrapped the cabin in soft glow, the four of them sat at the table. Quilts draped around the girls, bowls of stew steaming between them. Rosie laughed at something small. Abby leaned against her father's shoulder, Clara's hand brushed against his across the table. Not an embrace, not a vow, just a quiet touch that spoke louder than words. Outside, the frost still clung to the ground. But within, warmth bloomed, fragile and true. And the old truth settled in Elias's heart. Redemption was not made in grand gestures, but in the smallest acts of grace. A man cannot change the winters he has already let pass. But he can tend the fire before him, keep it burning bright for those who shiver in the dark. And sometimes the ones you thought lost are not gone at all. They are waiting for you to come home early. So, dear listener, if shame weighs heavy on you, remember this: the rope can be untied, the frost can melt. Redemption lives in the courage to return.